sisters.
Hello everyone, Ginger Zephiel here, though you may know me by my actual internet alias of ZerkMonsterHunter 4. I love Halloween, and I have since I was a young kid. The aesthetics and feeling of the season are great. And I think my love for horror and the horror genre can be tied back to one of my favorite cartoons as a child and one of the most iconic Western cartoons ever produced. Scooby Doo. Yeah, I went there. Growing up in Canada, we had Teletoon instead of Cartoon Network. And every October, Teletoon would rerun every single direct-to-video Scooby Doo movie that had been released up to the year that they were doing the marathon. My favorites of these were always the original four: Zombie Island, Witch's Ghost, Alien Invaders, and Cyber Chase. Three of them still hold up rather well. We don't talk about Cyber Chase, but I want to look at the big three, because prior to Mystery Incorporated, they were considered the best pieces of Scooby media out there. I remember each of the big three direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movies fondly, though I remember Witch's Ghost the least. And that is because of these big three, it was the only one I didn't have on DVD. But there is something about it that I do remember. And that is the Hex Girls. Yeah, those Hex Girls. Actually, what had happened was a subscriber of mine posted fan art of the Hex Girls onto our Discord server, and it got the gears in my head turning. I ended up looking up a bit more fan art, some of the original clips from Witch's Ghost and What's New Scooby Doo, as well as listening to the original songs that they composed for the Hex Girls in the various incarnations that they had. By the way, they all slap. And by the end of it, I had gotten so intrigued that I decided to revisit their original incarnation in Witch's Ghost. Now, as someone who has always sung the praises of Zombie Island and incorporated as the best pieces of Scooby-Benia in the Scooby Lexicon... is that a thing? Upon my rewatch and eventual decision to make this video, I was pleasantly surprised by the actual quality of Witch's Ghost, especially considering it had to follow up such a franchise-defining piece like Zombie Island. I think they did a really good job, and I don't think Witch's Ghost gets the credit it deserves for really doing what it did. So today I wanted to explore that with you guys. So pull up a chair, grab some popcorn, as this Halloween we discuss why Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost is the most underappreciated of the four original Scooby-Doo direct-to-video films. Now, before I go any further into this review, I want to make it very clear that everything I'm about to say about this film is relative to the fact that this is a movie about a talking dog and his friends who solve mysteries aimed at 5th graders. So, this is not Citizen Kane. As such, I will be judging this movie based on the criteria as a film about a talking dog and his friends solving mysteries aimed at 5th graders. Good. Good.
The film opens similarly to Zombie Island before it. The gang are about to wrap up another mystery, and a montage set to the original show's theme song plays, introducing us to one of the major characters in Witch's Ghost, Ben Ravencroft, who is totally not at all based on Stephen King whatsoever. Velma happens to be a big fan of Ben Ravencroft and is naturally enamored. Eventually, after a quick conversation, the gang takes him up on his offer to return with him to the town of Oakhaven for their fall festival. In Oakhaven, the gang splits up following leads and sightings of a ghost who is supposedly Sarah Ravencroft, Ben's ancestor. Ben is naturally upset by this, as he wants to find Sarah Ravencroft's journal, supposedly a record of her patience as a medicine woman, in order to clear her name of being a witch. Later, Scooby and Shaggy, after bumping into the Hex Girls, encounter the ghost before running into Ben and Velma. The whole gang eventually ends up watching the Hex Girls practice before deciding to split up again and trail various suspects. Eventually, Velma and Ben deduced that the fake ghost was a publicity stunt by the town, primarily orchestrated by the mayor and Thorne's father. Following the exposure of the publicity stunt, the Hex Girls, Ben, and Mystery Inc. all gather at Ben's place before the mayor and Thorne's father reveal that they found a lead on Sarah Ravenscroft's journal, which prompts all the characters to go hunt for it. At which point Ben Ravencroft reveals that he was Tim Curry the whole time, and his ancestor was actually a witch. He hams it up until Sarah is summoned, who begins to destroy the town and attack the main cast, leaving Thorne, a Wiccan, and pure of heart, I am literally quoting the film here, the only one who can read the spell, sealing Sarah back into the book. After a character developing moment, Thorne succeeds and everyone parties at the Hex Girls concert.
If that sounded at all complicated to you, that's because it is.
This is where we come to the biggest problem with Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost, and that is its pacing. Never mind that this film is juggling the ongoing Fred and Daphne subplot from Zombie Island by trying to put Thorne in the same position as Lena relative to Fred and Daphne, as well as scenes like the diner scene going on way longer than they should. The actual mystery taking up the runtime is not given the attention it really deserves. The film is only 66 minutes long, and the whole thing breaks down because of its pacing, requiring awkward, over-expository dialogue to make up the time it loses. I think they could have made the film about 12 minutes longer and really built up the fake ghost more, since there are only 2 encounters with the fake ghost before the film switches gears to transition into the third act twist. By making the major suspects, the mayor and the Hex Girls, less and more suspicious respectively, along with adding a third encounter with the fake ghost prior to the unmasking, would have done wonders for this film's pacing, along with adding more clues to the journal apart from the book buckle along the way, and this film would have probably been much better. Where I will give the story props though is the third act twist. Ben Ravencroft being Tim Curry the whole time is explained rather well, and the suspicious details about his character do add up, making it feel far less like an out-of-nowhere surprise werecats kind of twist. It's also helped by the fact that Velma and Ben have a bit of a budding romance throughout the film, something Zombie Island tried to do with Fred and Lena, but Witch's Ghost ultimately does better simply off the merit of Velma being a more interesting character than Fred. Once again, props to BJ Ward and Tim Curry here. They really sell the whole thing.
What's the matter, Velma? Don't you like the new, improved Ben Ravencroft?
Oh, Tim Curry, you son of a bitch. Why did I do that on camera? Oh.
Ignoring the plot, however, this film has no right to be as good as it is. Like, there is a genuine quality to this film that has actually made me appreciate it more as an adult, as above all else, this is a wonderfully presented movie. I think what really jumped out at me first was the animation. There's nothing of that cheap, classic Hanna-Barbera of the 60s here at all. All the cells look really solid, and the fact that this film was entirely hand-drawn is a treat for lovers of classic animation. The backgrounds have this pastel look, and the whole film is rooted in colorful fall tones that make it perfect for Halloween. Those darker muted colors as well really give the film character. A sense of grit and a general lived-in feeling pervades the film and this interpretation of the Scoobyverse. Barring the other films in this style, this wasn't matched until Mystery Incorporated. Several of the showcase sequences as well, like the Hex Girls' first performance or Tim Curry's first use of magic, are legitimately breathtaking. The animation is smooth, powerful, and there's a real weight to the characters' motions. Coupled with the film going whole hog and changing up the previously reserved color palette, the scenes at night are particularly well done and really convey that fall season. While researching for this video, I recently learned from YouTuber Billiam's Scooby Doo retrospective that this film's animation was largely outsourced to Japan, and frankly, I wouldn't trade Anime Thorn for anything, ever.
Ah, super kawaii.
The presentation details extend well into the character designs as well. Almost all of them read very effectively, and I love the updates to Fred and Daphne's look to reflect that this is the same aged-up gang present within the Zombie Island continuity. Details like this extend to the best glasses gag in any Scooby-Doo anything ever, where without any ham-fisted dialogue based on visual cues alone and a simple sorry from Ben and Velma, the switched glasses joke is sold on art direction alone. I could honestly talk for about 10 minutes as to why this joke works on so many levels with regards to the story, but I already sound like a massive pedantic asshole, so I'm just gonna quit while I'm ahead. The designs of all the new characters fit right in as well, with special mention to the look of the Hex Girls. Their color-coded outfits and striking character designs clash so well with the sleepy New England setting from the get-go that you can tell these are characters who belong in the spotlight. They do really well to appear as the antitheses to the squeaky clean image of the Scooby Gang and reek of late 90s to early 2000s pop punk. Kinda like a gender-bent Green Day, but spooky. The voice acting is also all around stellar. The VAs all sound great, even with the clunky dialogue in some parts. Tim Curry as Ben Ravencroft, Jennifer Hale as Thorn, and BJ Ward as Velma, especially when she gets to play off of Tim Curry, are the standouts here.
I honestly don't think Tim Curry as Ben Ravencroft gets enough credit. For most of the film, you can't even actually tell it's Tim Curry until he goes full Red Alert 3 by the end when he turns evil, which is just wonderful to behold.
Can I spin a yarn or what?
The best aspect of this film's presentation, though, is definitely the soundtrack. All of the songs here are reasonably well composed. They're catchy and fit the tone quite well. Apart from the opening montage, which is sung by Billy Ray Cyrus of all people. What I really dig, though, about the soundtrack is how much of it is ambient. Unlike the Scooby norm of montages set to be right pop, the vocal performances are actively woven organically into the plot thanks to the Hex Girls' performances. This really breaks the pace from the aforementioned chase montage formula and leads to some of the most refreshing and eye-catching musical numbers in the entire series. Seriously, Earth, Wind, Fire, and Air is my jam.
Quite an act, Miss,
Thorn. This is Dusk and Luna. We're eco-goths.
If there's one other thing this movie nails, it's the Hex Girls. From their eye-catching design, killer accompanying soundtrack, and goth aesthetic, it's really no wonder they became fan favorites after this movie. What really surprised me, though, is just how integral the Hex Girls, especially Thorn, are in relation to the plot. Thorn is connected to both witches' ghosts, with the fake being portrayed by her father, and the second requiring her being a Wiccan to defeat. Thorn ends up having a visible character arc in the film, the arc mostly surrounding her self-confidence and personal identity as a Wiccan. Everything from how she goes by her stage name as much as she can, to having a reality check when facing down the real ghost of Sarah Ravencroft and realizing she's just someone who cooks up herbs in a shed, makes Thorn sucking it up and saving the day, embracing who she is as a Wiccan, by far the most dynamic character in the film, and arguably a protagonist adjacent to Mystery Incorporated. Thorn's arc does bring me to another point, though. That is the portrayal of Wicca and Wiccans in this film. While the film does flub the time period as to when Wicca was actually invented, the portrayal of Wiccans as naturalists and spiritualists is both very respectful and astounding considering the context that this film was hot off the heels of a post-satanic panic world. D&D had changed devils to Batazu and demons to Tanar'ri just a few years earlier. But then to see squeaky clean Scooby Doo treat a new age religion that is often demonized as witchcraft in a very straightforward and respectful manner is frankly astounding. Going so far as to actually portray the Wiccan as the one to save the day is extremely cool. Scooby Doo is woke, guys. As for the other two members, Dusk and Luna mostly just satellite Thorn. Dusk, however, does get some of the best jokes in the film. Despite her lack of screen time, she still makes a very strong impression thanks to this. Luna, however, unfortunately gets kinda shafted. She speaks the least of the three, and we learn the least about her, save the fact that her father was the dentist who outfitted the band with their fake fangs. The mystery and uniqueness of all three members, however, with Luna and Dusk having plenty of directions for their characters, does make up for this in some respects. Thorn, especially coming off of a reasonable and emotional arc, meant that there was plenty of room to expand on these characters in future Scooby media. Thankfully, Hex Girls fans wouldn't have to wait long, as they returned in the What's New Scooby Doo era direct-to-video film, Legend of the Vampire, where they played a slightly less important role. The band also appeared in an episode of that series. Their best post-Witch's Ghost incarnation, however, is definitely from Mystery Incorporated, where they have a musical stand battle with an undead ska band. Unfortunately, in each of these instances, their roles are mostly boiled down to just being the Hex Girls. They're cool for enfranchised fans, but they lack a lot of the growth and potential for character development they had prior. What's New Scooby Doo's focus on comedy limits almost any character introduced into that show at all, much less one introduced in one episode. And despite how amazing it was to see them in Mystery Incorporated, that show has enough characters to juggle as is, and it can't really afford to develop characters who show up so infrequently.
This is the unfortunate trade-off of the Hex Girls becoming fan favorites. Because they show up again later in a heavily episodic series where they don't have as much room to grow since we won't see them again for a long or indeterminate amount of time, they end up becoming static, more just iconic platonic versions of what we think the Hex Girls should be. And that's a real shame, especially considering the emotional growth that Thorin experiences through this film. So, Warner Brothers, if you're listening, I'm going to give you a free pitch here, so alright, listen up. Hex Girls Netflix series. Interconnected, long-running mystery a la Mystery Incorporated, with original songs composed by a single band that you commission to release an album under the name Hex Girls. You're welcome.
I'm legitimately surprised I came back to this film and enjoyed it more than I did as a kid. I think a lot of that had to do with my respect and love for hand-drawn animation and goth girls, making this movie a perfect thing for me to revisit now. While the dialogue can be over-expository and the pacing is inconsistent, there's something I've just grown to love about this film that I just can't quite place. Whatever it is, I expect I'll come back to find it every Halloween from now on.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you feel like it as well, leave a comment down below and tell me who your favorite Hex Girl is and why it is Thorn. Stay safe this Halloween, everyone. Keep to the neighborhoods you know, and generally, have fun. I have been ZerkMonsterHunter 4, and as always, happy hunting. I would 100% buy Hex Girls concert tickets, just so you're aware. Like, seriously, get one of those, like, fake concert tees that says Hex Girls on it with, like, tour dates on it. I would buy the shit out of that. I mean, I would also buy, like, actual Hex Girls concert tickets, but, like, that's because I have a problem.
Space!